So I'll see you tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
Same time as always.
I'd count on a little later.
Doesn't matter what time it is. I'll always be around.
Bye.
Hey everyone, welcome back to my channel, and thank you for joining me for another video. So today we're going back to Stars Hollow as I continue my series discussing the relationships in Gilmore Girls. And today's video, we're going to be looking at Luke and Lorelai's relationship. But before we get into it, if you're new here, my name is Tanya and I am a family lawyer and mediator. And on this channel, I like to discuss all things related to relationships, from dating to divorce. If that sounds like something that you would like, please make sure that you're subscribed and ring the notification bell so you'll know when I upload new videos, because I don't really follow a schedule here. Now, if you haven't seen it yet, I previously did a video on Richard and Emily's relationship. I'll link it up here and below so you can go watch that after if you would like. But there's no need to watch them in any particular order. Now, Luke and Lorelai's relationship, I have to admit, was a challenge for me because I love the show, and one of the things I really love about the show is actually Luke and Lorelai's banter, the humor. You know what I mean. It's iconic. So just want to say from the outset, though, that I will be casting a critical eye on their relationship in a way that, let's say, a nutritionist might cast a critical eye on the diet of Lorelai and Rory. Even though it's a fun and quirky part of the show, in real life, if you ate nothing but Pop-Tarts and takeaway, you probably would not be doing so great. So in a similar way, I will be looking at Luke and Lorelai's relationship and some of the dynamics that I see that maybe in real life would be potentially problematic. That's not to say that I don't enjoy the relationship as part of a fictional show and that I don't enjoy watching it in general. And it's also not to say that some of the things that I will highlight actually transpire in the show, but more that these types of dynamics don't tend to work out so well when you apply them in reality. So with all that being said, let's just dive in. And first, let's start with the positive. One thing that I like about Luke and Lorelai, and that I think is a dynamic that can work really well in relationships, is the fact that their relationship is really based on a foundation of friendship. And this is quite in contrast to Richard and Emily, which I talked about previously, where they're not friends. Okay, they may be great partners in crime. They may work really well together, but ultimately they don't actually enjoy each other's company. And you see that when Richard retired and the way that Emily couldn't stand him when he was around all the time. This is very different in Luke and Lorelai's relationship. You see that they have a friendship, a camaraderie, they have fun together, they enjoy spending time together. When they're dating, they do things together, and you can see that even when they're friends, there's a certain amount of affection there.
Can I ask you stupid questions?
There's no such thing.
How does ink come out of pens?
All right, there is such a thing. Why can't you respect the rules of my diner?
I do respect the rules of your diner. It's that baseball cap I have issues with. Drink a couple beers, we'll sing painting songs.
Painting songs.
Yeah, painting songs like, you know, the song that goes, grab your brush and grab your rollers, all you kids and all you bowlers, we're going painting today. Curtains.
No.
Manly curtains.
Oxymoron.
What did you call? You're putting me in the kiddie lake?
Gotta crawl before you can walk.
Well, this is not at all embarrassing. There's not even fish in it.
Who the hell is this?
What do you mean, who is this? It's Lorelai. Who else would call you looking for her baby chick?
You're right. I'm the idiot. Go on.
What kind of bait is that?
It's a cork.
Remind me not to let you cater any of my parties.
It's to cover the hook.
And often the best relationships are really based on a strong foundation of friendships. So in that sense, I think that Luke and Lorelai's friendship turned romance can be a really positive thing. I also like that they really support each other. I like the way that they're there for each other no matter what's going on in their relationship, whether they're in a romantic relationship, they're not in a romantic relationship. They always come through for each other, and you see this in many cases. When Lorelai and Suki were running low on money with the Dragonfly Inn renovations, he came through and provided some financial assistance. He became an investor in the end, that's it. He built Lorelai the chuppah when she was going to marry Max. He's been a really good father figure to Rory as she's been growing up.
Rory. Sure the hell is my business.
Guys, please.
Rory is my daughter, mine.
Oh, really? Well then, where the hell were you when she got the chicken pox but only eat mashed potatoes for a week? Or where were you when she graduated high school or started college, huh? Who the hell moved her mattress into her dorm and out of her dorm and back into her dorm again?
The point is, he did really do a lot of nice things for Lorelai and Rory, and I hate using that word, but I'll come back to that. And Lorelai as well was there for him when he was having the custody battle with his daughter, when he was shopping for a gift for a girlfriend, when he needed new clothes, when he needed new luggage, when his uncle died. Rory and Lorelai at one point were basically running the diner for him while he was otherwise busy organizing the funeral. So there are many times where at the end of the day, they really stepped up for each other. They had each other's back, and it was like that was the person that they could rely upon. Now, with all the rosy stuff out of the way, let's just dive into some of the more insidious and I would say even toxic things that were going on. And I'm going to start by saying that I think Luke, in a sense, was a little bit of a toxic nice guy. That's what I'm going to call him. Because, like I said, he did a lot of really nice things, right? Nice in quotation marks, for Lorelai, for Rory. And yes, he did come through for them often. But when I talk about toxic nice guy, I mean it in two ways. Firstly, it's that classic sort of nice guy move where he's being nice and doing all these things, but in reality we know that he has an ulterior motive, because right from the beginning it was already portrayed to us that Luke had romantic feelings for Lorelai, and a lot of what motivated him to do these things was because he felt some type of way about her. And the nice guy does this. Instead of actually just pursuing a romantic relationship with his love interest, he will do nice things for her in an attempt to, how should I say, create a sense of obligation on the woman. It's almost a type of emotional manipulation. His aim is to make the woman feel like she owes him something, so that when he eventually does make a move, she will feel more inclined to give him a chance. And this is usually rooted in an insecurity and a feeling that this woman is actually out of his league. And you do see this with Luke and Lorelai. It's very clear in many ways that Luke looks at Lorelai like this woman is out of his league. He's just the small town diner guy who's like born and raised in Stars Hollow, really hasn't been anywhere else, and is probably going to live and die there, and has no interest in doing anything else. He lives above the diner that used to be his father's hardware store, and he's happy with his life like that. He has no ambitions beyond that. And Lorelai, on the other hand, came from a very wealthy family. She had a very privileged background and education, and you can see that she has big ambitions. She started working at the inn, but she wants to open her own place, and who knows what else. She is someone who has the potential to go far, to do anything that she wants to do, to achieve anything that she wants to achieve. And this can be very triggering, let's say, for Luke in that way. So that's why he doesn't pursue her in the way that you would expect a healthy, secure man to do. And a perfect example of that is Max. The way that Max pursues Lorelai, in my opinion, is absolutely the perfect balance of direct, no BS, no games, but also not over the top, like no love bombing. You know, he sees Lorelai, he's a bit flirtatious, for a few encounters, let's say, and then he just lays it out on the table. He's like, I like you, I think we should date.
Should we cut the cute and just get right to it?
I think we should date.
Why?
Because I think we both want to.
Well, I want to be in the Bangles. It doesn't mean I quit my job and get a guitar and ruin my life to be a Bangle, does it?
But the Bangles broke up.
Yeah, that's not the point.
Well, it's got to be part of the point if there's no band anymore.
I repeat my question, why should we date?
Because we're clearly attracted to each other.
Well, I'm attracted to pie. It doesn't mean I feel the need to date pie.
I mean, it doesn't leave Lorelai confused about how he feels. She knows what he wants. She knows he wants to pursue a romantic relationship with her, but he's not creepy about it. He's not over the top about it. And like I said, there's no hint of love bombing there. And in fact, when it comes to Max and Lorelai's relationship, I think that Max was a much better partner. And in that relationship, it was actually Lorelai who was the more problematic person. And I can do another video on that another time. But the point is that when we're talking about nice guys, that's sort of what I mean. But the toxic part of it as well, and the reason I say he's a toxic nice guy is because he does all these really nice things, often motivated by his feelings for Lorelai, but he also has a lot of toxic traits and a lot of problematic behavior that essentially we're meant to overlook and forgive because he's such a nice guy. And this is where I have a real problem with Luke in terms of like his behavior in the relationship and as a character if we were to supplant him into real life. For example, on several occasions, Luke demonstrates real tendencies towards jealousy. He is fairly dismissive of Lorelai's relationship with Max, and he tries to undermine it when they get engaged by suggesting that, they haven't talked about where they're going to live or all of that stuff. And he really sows seeds of doubt there for Lorelai. He also butts heads with Jason Stiles, and of course, we know that he was hyper jealous of Christopher, and that came through when they were dating and when they were having a relationship on multiple occasions, and it was very problematic. For example, he had a problem with the fact that they had lunch at the inn when this man is Rory's biological father. He also has a problem with Lorelai having gotten together with Christopher after Christopher's father died, when, again, this man is Rory's biological father, and not the man who died was one of Rory's grandparents. Okay, granted, not one that they had a relationship with, but still, it's perfectly reasonable for her to visit with him. They're childhood friends, they have a previous history, there was nothing untowards about it. And in the end, Lorelai keeps it from him because she knows that he's jealous, because she knows that it's going to garner a negative reaction. And of course, when he does find out about it, it does garner a negative reaction. And although you could say, oh, it's because she lied or she didn't tell him, at the end of the day, they were not married. So she didn't really owe him full disclosure about everything that she does. She was loyal to him, and she didn't need to explain that she caught up with, an old friend when his father died. But that's my opinion on it anyway. The point is, he was clearly very jealous about it. He had a chip on his shoulder. It led to the whole confrontation that he and Christopher have at the re-wedding. It leads to Luke ending their relationship, which is another problem that Luke has, and that is that he has terrible communication skills. Anytime that he gets upset about something, instead of communicating about it, he tends to get either very grumpy or he pulls away and gives Lorelai a bit of the silent treatment, like the re-wedding. And this is a classic emotional manipulation tactic that we see in very toxic relationships. When one partner gets upset about something, they can't communicate their feelings in a healthy way. They either shut down and withdraw their affection and their attention, or they blow up and get very angry. And we see Luke do both of those things. So after the re-wedding, he leaves Lorelai there and runs off, which is in a way a very immature reaction to what occurred. I mean, this is after, of course, having a major public blow up with Christopher. Then he doesn't want to talk to Lorelai about what happened. Instead, he just shuts her out and tells her that he needs time. When Lorelai is pushing him to discuss what happened with her and open up, he just breaks it off with her and tells her he can't do this anymore. It's too much. This is a classic example of somebody who does not know how to communicate effectively and have a healthy relationship. And on the flip side, we see Luke lose his temper multiple times. When he and Lorelai are broken up, he's very grumpy, very ill-tempered, to the point where he actually will kick people out of the diner or yell and scream at them. There are also multiple occasions where Luke demonstrates violent behavior. For example, he confronts Dean after Dean and Rory break up and practically physically assaults him. And at the time, Dean is a child. He's only 16 years old.
Stop right there.
What?
Where are you going?
To get coffee?
Wrong.
Excuse me?
Not going in there, buddy.
What are you talking about?
Turn around, bag boy.
Are you
You
serious?
see a smile on this face?
No, but what's different about that?
What's that supposed to mean?
Well, just that you're not exactly known as a town crack-up.
So you're a smart guy now, huh?
What the hell are you doing?
Just exercising my right not to serve you.
What are you talking about? I'm not even inside yet. Let go of me.
You first!
When he's in a relationship with Nicole and he finds out that Nicole is cheating on him, instead of just speaking to her about it, he stalks Nicole and her supposed lover and then assaults his car. Now, in the show, it seems like he doesn't actually damage the car, but we know that when these sort of things happen in real life, it's very likely that he would have damaged the car. And that sort of behavior is often something that we see in coercive, controlling relationships and relationships where there is domestic violence, the stalking, the damaging property, and often there's an escalation in real life to actual physical violence in that case. Now, this didn't happen in the show, but what I'm saying is when you see behavior like that, that is a major red flag. And yet, as I said, we are meant as the audience to just overlook this type of behavior because he's a nice guy. And this is sort of what I have a problem with. And of course, the probably most egregious example of Luke's violent temper is when he goes to Christopher's house and literally just punches him in the face. Like, without saying a word. And yet we're all just supposed to be like, oh well, that's Luke for you. Luke's temper is often couched as a joke in the show. The way, for example, we laugh at the whole, I can't believe Luke threw a frying pan at Taylor's head. The way we laughed when he pushed Jess into the pond. I mean, to be fair, that was kind of funny. But the point is, it's not actually funny in real life. And you would never want to forgive that sort of behavior, no matter how nice a guy has been and no matter what he has done for you. At the end of the day, it is very dangerous to overlook that sort of violent temper simply because, oh, well, he's a nice guy. He's such a nice, deep down, below the gruff exterior and violent outbursts, he's actually a good guy with a good heart. You see, that sort of mentality is what gets women into trouble. It's why women will end up forgiving an abuser, going back to an abuser, and believing that he can change. You know, if only he could just control his temper, he'll do better. Deep down, he has a good heart. This is dangerous. Another problem that I see play out in their relationship is that dynamic that I sort of touched on earlier, where Luke feels insecure and feels like Lorelai is someone who is out of his league. See, what often happens in these situations is that if a man feels that way about a woman, he will tear her down. It's his way of coping with the fact that she's too good for him in his mind. and that her flourishing and being her best, most amazing self will inevitably mean that she obviously needs to leave him, because she will realize that he's just dragging her down, that he offers no value to her, and that really, why would she want to be with him? That's just a projection of how he feels about himself vis-a-vis her. And that sort of dynamic can be really harmful, and we see it a little bit play out. You see when Lorelai opens the Dragonfly and it becomes very successful. Inn is featured in a magazine, and then she gets an amazing opportunity to sell the inn to a big hotel conglomerate called the Germ Group, who would obviously invest a lot of money into maintaining and improving the inn, but also would take Lorelai on as a sort of consultant and send her around the world to other properties that they may want to acquire or have acquired, and they want her to do sort of her thing with that property. Now, she talks about this opportunity with Suki, and Suki's super excited, but of course at the time Suki is pregnant with her second child, and so she says, yeah, that would be amazing, but obviously I can't do it, but you can. Now Lorelai hesitates, because when she discusses it with Luke, Luke is very negative about it. And of course the reason he's very negative comes back to what I was saying, which is that he's actually very insecure, and he feels like this type of thing is exactly what Lorelai should pursue, but is exactly the type of thing that would lead Lorelai to basically leave him in her shadow. And that's exactly what would have happened had she pursued that opportunity. But she doesn't. Now, it's never explained in the show why, but that is a very typical thing that we see happening when you have that sort of dynamic. Because the man sort of undermines the woman's potential or undermines her confidence, and makes her feel like, oh, why would you sell the inn, for example? And you can see that it has an impact on her, because even though afterwards he sort of backpedals, it's very half-hearted. It's like, oh yeah, I guess you should take the meeting. You know, it's a connection or whatever that means. And it feels very like begrudging on his part. Like, okay, I should support you because that's what I'm supposed to do. But you can see that he's still not very happy about it. And in the end, like, my personal opinion is that she doesn't pursue this opportunity because of her relationship with Luke. And I feel like it's very much to her detriment, because when we catch up with them in the revival series, we see that Lorelai is very much stuck in a rut. She's stuck in the same place which she was at the end of the show. And I feel like it's almost a very unfortunate arc for her character, because she started out so driven and ambitious, and she had so much potential. You know, she had overcome so many obstacles in her life, having been pregnant at 16, having, run off from her parents' house, having worked her way up from a maid at the Independence Inn, having gotten a business degree, having opened her own inn, having made a huge success of it. And then she kind of just flatlines. And I attribute a lot of that to Luke and the influence that he has on her. Because as soon as they start their relationship, which is after the Dragonfly opens up and really sort of finds its feet, yeah, that's where you sort of see that lack of ambition, the lack of drive, and that comes from him, because that's how he is. He was always that guy. He opened his diner, he lived above it, and that was it. He was going to live and die there, and he never wanted anything else. And we see in the revival, even Suki has moved on at that point. She's gone on to bigger and better things. The inn itself is very sort of flatlined, because it hasn't really kept up with the times. And so now it's the place where the D-list celebrities were staying, not the A-list celebrities, which became a little bit of a gag in the show, but actually is kind of sad to see. And you see that Michelle is also looking at leaving, because he needs to move on. He also wants to do bigger and better things. So it's only Lorelai that seems very much stuck in that place. And at that point as well, they didn't even get married. So in the end, she stayed with this man. He never really married her until the very end of that sort of revival, kind of. And yeah, it was kind of a disappointing arc for such a dynamic, independent, intelligent, vivacious character. But this is very typical of that type of relationship in real life. And we see it actually has, like in the show, it's sort of, again, painted as like, oh, it's funny. And maybe Lorelai likes her little world and her little town just like she likes it. She doesn't want to do bigger and better things. But I don't buy it, you know what I mean? And it's meant to be like, oh, when they lived happily ever after, but it was like they lived happily ever after very much at the expense of Lorelai pursuing her career and her sort of opportunity to do more with her life. And in reality, that sort of dynamic can very easily destroy a woman's life. Now, I don't mean to pile on Luke. Let's just be clear, Lorelai herself is not a perfect person or character. And I alluded to this before when I discussed Max and Lorelai and how she was kind of the problematic one in that relationship, but Lorelai was very hyper independent and had some real commitment issues of her own. And so in some ways I can understand why she didn't marry Max, for example, and why she was with Luke for so long. Because in some ways Luke was safe. He wasn't asking any more of her. Unlike Max or even Christopher, she could be as stubborn as she wanted to be. And Luke, in a way, kind of accepted that. When she didn't want to move out of her house, which would have been a problem with Max, and it definitely became a problem with Christopher, it wasn't a problem with Luke. Luke was very happy for them to stay at the house, and he even helped her renovate it. But in reality, he had wanted to buy the Twickham house, and that had always been his dream. But in the end, he gave that up because Lorelai had some sort of stubborn obsession with this house that she had bought. So this is one of Lorelai's flaws as a partner. And for that reason, I'm going to finish on this note because people often have this sort of, should Lorelai have married Max? Should she have stayed with Christopher? Or should she be with Luke? It's sort of like, which man do you prefer? I would have liked Lorelai's arc to have not included her ending up with any of those men. I think Lorelai's character would have been so much stronger if in the end she had pursued the opportunity and actually had not pursued any romantic relationship, not in a long-term sense. Like she could have had, her short-term things, but not in a serious marriage, living together, settling down sort of way. I don't actually think that Lorelai was the settling down type. I actually think that's why she didn't marry Max, because Max was, in a sense, almost a perfect partner. The biggest criticism I could think of is that he's almost too perfect. But that was the point. He was meant to be so perfect, but Lorelai was meant to turn away from that. Because ultimately, I think Lorelai, as a character, was so much stronger on her own. And all of the men ultimately dimmed her light one way or the other. So yeah, that's my take on Luke and Lorelai. Let me know what you think about it in the comments down below. I always love hearing from you. And make sure that you're following along, because in the next video or series of videos, I'm going to start diving into Rory's relationships. I think for Rory, I will need to do a separate video for each of her boyfriends. Dean, Jess, and Logan. And I will let you know which team I'm on, but no spoilers. Thanks so much for joining me. I hope you enjoyed this video. I hope to see you back here again. In the meantime, take care and enjoy the rest of your day wherever you are in this crazy world. Bye for now.